Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Notre Dame Mendoza College of Business MSBA program overview webinar. Thank you all for joining us this evening or this morning for some of you. We appreciate that you're coming to us from all over the US and many of you from across the globe as well. And we're really excited to share more about this program with you. And we're excited to kind of dive into the curriculum and just the setup of this program and excited to answer your questions as well. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items for all of you. If you do have microphone capabilities with your Zoom platform, please keep yourself muted throughout the webinar just to cut back on that background noise for us. If you have questions, feel free to submit those questions throughout the webinar in the Q&A function. We won't be monitoring the chat function, but we will be monitoring the Q&A function. So go ahead and submit your questions there at any time as they come up throughout our presentation. So if anyone, and actually I should do a sound check. So if anyone can hear me, just raise your hand so that I know that you can hear me. Perfect. You guys are great listeners. Thank you so much. All right, so I want to make sure that you all know who you're talking to this evening. For those of you who joined me for our first webinar, the application Q&A webinar, thank you for joining me again. You already know who I am, but for those of you who have not met me before, quick introduction. So my name is Stephanie Brown. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Mendoza College of Business, and I work with our MSBA program and am recruiting our classes, and I get to read your applications. I get to answer your questions and do all of these fun webinars with you. So I joined Mendoza just about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and have absolutely loved being a part of this community, and I have loved the family that I joined here. And speaking of family, you can see the photos that I have put on this slide, just so you know a little bit more about me. That first photo, top left, is my family, which is my absolute main priority in life. I love my family more than anything, love being a wife, love being a mom. And I picked this photo because we're all together in the Notre Dame football stadium. Notre Dame is very near and dear to my heart. I grew up here in the South Bend area and have loved Notre Dame my whole life. So it has been a privilege to be able to work in this community as well and give other students an opportunity to join the Notre Dame community. Tab right picture is glitter. I love glitter. If I could put glitter on everything, I would. I love crafting. That's something I like to do in my free time. Love painting and love creating different crafts with my sons. So when I do have some downtime away from work, you can probably find me being a little bit more creative. Bottom left picture is some Starbucks coffee and some pumpkins. We're in pumpkin season here in Indiana. It's fall. I love the fall, so I kind of picked this picture because of the pumpkins. It's my favorite season. My birthday is in the fall in a couple of weeks, so another reason I love this time of year. But I also love my coffee. Starbucks is my favorite, and can't get through my day without a couple, maybe a few cups of coffee. And that bottom right picture is Target, my favorite store. I worked at Target when I was in high school. It was my first job growing up. I loved Target before it was really the cool thing to do. And I actually met my husband at Target as well. So you really can find everything at Target, including a husband. So that's just a little bit more about me. And now I'm going to pass the mic on to Scott Nestler, who's going to introduce himself and his role in this program.
All right, hello everyone. Like Stephanie said, my name is Scott Nestler, and I am the academic director for the MSBA program here at Notre Dame. I have been here for a little over 5 years now, and I get to help Stephanie with all those things that she does for you and everyone else here. I also work with our faculty very closely on developing the curriculum and the courses that we'll talk about here in a little while. and I even teach a few of the classes. As you can see here, I've included some photos as well. If you couldn't see me on camera, you'd at least be able to see what I look like there. You notice there's a photo of books, and while it's not just saying I love books, which I do, it's more to represent that I love learning. I view learning as a lifelong process. I'm still learning every day, still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, even though I'm in my second career. And there's a hint to my first career there. The missile launcher you see there in the upper left-hand corner, that's a Patriot missile launcher that's on Osan Air Base in the Republic of South Korea. So I was in the US Army for 26 years before I retired in 2015 and came to Notre Dame. So I'm not in the military anymore, but I had a lot of good experiences, got to see a lot of the world. And they sent me to graduate school a couple of times and prepared me for my current role. And then like Stephanie, my family and my faith, which are both reflected in this photo here. That's a picture of my wife and my two daughters at one of our churches at a prior duty station where we used to be when I was in the Army, actually. So this photo is actually a few years old. Actually, it was on a visit there a couple of years ago, so it's not that old. But anyway, that lets you know a little bit about me, and I look forward to sharing more about the program with you here as we continue this evening.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so now that you know a little bit more about us, let's talk about what you can expect from this webinar this evening. We are going to dive in with what business analytics really is. So we'll have Scott walk us through a really great definition of business analytics. We'll cover the program structure and profile of our current class and basically the kind of students that we are looking for with this program. We'll also talk about the curriculum. We'll talk more about MSBA career opportunities, and then just a very brief overview of admissions requirements as well. And then, of course, we'll answer your questions at the end as well. All right, so let's pass it on to Scott and learn about business analytics.
So if you do a web search using your favorite search engine for business analytics, you will find a number of different definitions out there. They're all a little bit different, but they have some commonality. Here's one I choose to use kind of as a base definition because I think it does a good job of describing it the way I think about it. Now, maybe that's because I was actually involved in coming up with this definition for the group Informs that you see their logo there. That's the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences. That is my primary professional home as someone who came from the field of operations research. And management science is kind of like an old-fashioned name for business analytics. Informs in about 2010 decided to embrace analytics, and in doing so, one of the things that we realized we needed to do was define it. So as you see here, we say that it is a scientific process where you take data and transform it into insights, hopefully to help people and organizations make better decisions. And I want to be clear about this. It's very much a process. It's not just a collection of tools that you learn in classes. Yes, there is a toolkit that you will learn different pieces of, but you have to know what are the right tools to apply to each problem when you start off with a problem and do this transformation that it talks about here. I'll talk a little more about that process on a later slide. But the key things here are it's a process. It often nearly always uses data, and we want to produce insights and hopefully support better decision making. Here's another view of analytics. This comes from Gartner, which maybe you have heard of or maybe not. But if you look at it from left to right, you'll see a different version of what I described in words on the last slide. It's this idea of starting with data, doing some type of analysis, to ultimately come to a decision and take an action. But you'll notice there's a little more detail here. There's different types of analytics: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and those words mean something. They try to answer different questions like, well, what happened? Looking at historical data with statistics. Why did it happen? Digging into causality. what will happen? That's getting into like predictive analytics, using a lot of data mining and machine learning and forecasting techniques. And then knowing all of those kinds of things, ultimately where organizations really want to get to is, okay, so what should I do now that I know all of that? That's what we call prescriptive analytics, which deals with things like optimization and simulation. And then there's another dimension here up in the green and yellow part there that talks about the fact that, we as people are very involved in some of these types of analytics, but less so in others, where we turn it over to algorithms and computers to help us solve the problems. But that brings some other things into consideration, which are, well, how much of the decision making and so forth do we actually want to turn over to the algorithms? Maybe we as humans want to remain in the loop. There are ethical considerations that come into play, particularly with some of the more advanced types of analytics. And we'll talk about how that fits into our curriculum as well. So I mentioned this process, and it looks nice and neat here from step 1 through step 7, but I'll tell you in reality, that's not how it works. I mean, in general, yes, we start off with what's the business question or the business problem that we're trying to help someone solve. How do we translate that by framing it as an analytics problem? How do we collect or clean the data that we're provided? Then what method or what type of model do we plan to build? Then we actually do it, and then we deploy it into use and hopefully maintain it over a life cycle. But in reality, there's often feedback loops and rework into there. You might get down to step 5 and realize, oh, wait a minute, I don't have the right data to build the kind of model I first thought I wanted to. So you go back to step 3 and say, well, can I get that data? If the answer is yes, great. If it's not, well, then maybe you need to select a different approach for the problem and so forth. And then lifecycle management, like it indicates, is, over time, models don't always remain constant. Things change, not only the data, but the processes change as well. So you often have to go back and rework things as you go. You'll note down at the bottom there, I have included a few other acronyms, CRISP-DM, SEMA, and so forth. There are lots of other frameworks out there. This is the one that happens to come, the one I'm showing you comes from the Informed Certified Analytics Professional Certification Program. These other ones out there are equally valid. The cross-industry standard process for data mining, the SEMA process, which comes from a software vendor named SAS. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't mean to imply that this is the only way to do this, but it is important to have a process and follow it in your analyses. And we'll get used to using a few different ones of these as you work through the curriculum.
Thank you, Scott. We actually have a very relevant question from Jocelyn. She's wondering why you decided to pursue data analytics.
So I was a civil engineering major as an undergraduate in college. I thought I wanted to be a construction project manager, which is what my father did. And I had worked construction as a high school student and a college student and thought this was pretty interesting and I could see doing this. Actually, my senior year of college, I took a class in project management that dealt with something called linear programming. And now that doesn't mean writing computer code, although it can. It actually is a type of prescriptive analytics called optimization. And I thought it was really neat. And then, I went off to the Army because I had a scholarship that I had to pay back for 4 years. And then I had a decision to make about what I was going to do next. And I was thinking about getting out of the Army and going back to Pennsylvania to be a construction project manager. I could have done that. But the Army offered me the opportunity to, hey, do you want to go to graduate school, get a master's degree, and maybe teach at West Point, the military academy? And I thought, well, that's interesting. What can I go do that in? And they gave me a range of things: applied math, operations research, pure math. The pure math wasn't really of interest. I like solving real problems. And so I kind of focused on the applied math and operations research side, which is where that linear programming thing fits in, which, like I said, operations research, management science, those fields still exist as traditional academic fields, but if you look at what people in those fields do in industry, it's more often now called data analytics or business analytics. And so it's a combination of things. The ability to, well, a class that I took as an undergrad, the ability of working on real world problems, the opportunity to go to graduate school and teach. It was kind of a, I guess a mix or a confluence of several things that sort of led me in this direction. Thanks.
All right, so now that we know a little bit more about what business analytics is, let's talk about the MSBA program. So this program is 10 months in length, and essentially it's a full academic year. So a standard traditional academic year that begins in late August. It ends in mid-May. It's 31 credit hours. This program is designed for candidates who have 0 to 2 years work experience. Currently, about 75% of our current class, has no work experience other than internships. So the majority of our students are coming in directly from their undergraduate program and are treating this as more of a fifth-year program. But we do have 25% of our students with work experience, and those averages range anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 years. So we do love to have that balance of students who have come in with just internships and those students who do have that bit more work experience to share during those times of collaboration with group projects and so on. We love to see business and quant majors apply to this program. Any type of business, from just traditional business management, marketing, finance, accounting, but then also those strong quantitative majors. It could be anything from engineering or economics, MIS, things like that. Those are all great majors that will really help lead you into the curriculum of the MSBA program. We do require that our applicants complete 3 prerequisites in order to be able to complete this program. The first prerequisite is statistics. And then the second 2 are 2 business courses. And those business courses can fall into any of the categories listed there: accounting, finance, management, and marketing. I have also listed economics. There are many economics courses that can satisfy these 2 business prerequisites. But for those classes, we do ask that if you're wondering if an economics class can count as one of these prereqs, we ask you to submit a transcript, and just email a transcript to me, and I'm happy to take a look, send that on to Scott, and he can take a look as well, and we can tell you if that economics class will count for one of those prerequisites. All right, let's see here. We do have a question coming in that talking about the timeline for the 10 months of the program, and we will talk about that on just a couple of slides. We'll talk a little bit more about how the program is laid out there. All right, so moving on, what does our MSBA class look like? So the class this year has 58 students. And I wanted to make note of that this program has 80 seats available. Now, as many of you know, you probably all have felt the effects of COVID-19 over the past several months. And, we would have loved to have had those 80 seats filled, but we do have a number of students who felt the effects in terms of travel and immigration. And so they'll be joining us hopefully in this next year, but we do have 80 seats to fill this year. And we're really excited to fill out that full class. For this current class, those 58 students who have joined us this year, 43% are international students coming from 17 different countries across the globe. 31% are female students. And you can see the average GPA, GMAT, GRE listed there as well. Those are just the averages. And I know we usually get a lot of questions in these webinars about what is that minimum GMAT score, that minimum GPA that you need to get in order to be admitted into this program. And I'll simply tell you that we don't have minimums. We do a very holistic review of each application. And so, you know, we do look at GMAT and GPA and all of those great things, but we're also looking at your major, the grades you've gotten in your classes within your major. We look at internships that you have done and things like that. So don't worry about that minimum score. There is none. We'll look at every piece of your profile. With our current class, 21% of our students majored in economics, 15% majored in business or management, another 13% in accounting, and 13% in finance. If you're a student who doesn't necessarily have a major in a business area or in a quant field, no worries, because many of our, actually over 30% of our current class has majors outside of that. We have majors in political science, in music, in design, in engineering, and just a lot of social sciences as well. So don't let this list, make you believe that you're not qualified. If you have strong quantitative skills and you can display those quantitative skills, this might be a good program for you. And we can always, Scott and I can always talk to you a little bit more about your qualifications if you have questions. So just please feel free to reach out to us about that. All right, as promised, here's a little bit more about the program structure that you asked about. So within that full academic year, we have 2 semesters. Each semester is divided into 2 7-week modules. And in between those 2 7-week modules, you'll have a 1-week interterm on campus. Those interterms we will talk about a little bit more about in a couple of slides, but essentially it's more of a deep dive into a particular area of study relevant to the MSBA program, a little bit more experiential learning with those. And you will see the same setup in the spring semester as well. So another 2 7-week modules, and then that 1-week interterm as well. And so next we get to move on to the curriculum, and I'll have Scott take it from here.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Like she said, in the fall semester, there's mods 1 and 2, and then in the spring semester, there's mods 3 and 4. And you can see here, you typically have, 4 or 5 courses each mod. So we start off in the fall with an Introduction to Business Analytics course, which is a mix of statistics and some high-level intro, to things like that business analytics process I mentioned, some ethical ideas, things like that. We also start with a predictive analytics course. Remember, that's one of the 4 types of analytics that I mentioned in the slide from Gartner. In this case, we're currently using SAS Enterprise Miner to give you kind of a drag and drop, point and click interface at a high level to a number of different methodologies. In the data visualization class, that's done in Tableau. So there's another platform or program that you get to learn. Data management is a mixture of SQL, that's structured query language for databases, and the R programming language, which is also used in the Intro to Business Analytics or Statistics course. And then there's a class that actually runs the whole fall semester, it's called this Bridge to Success course, which is essentially working with the folks in the Career Development Office at Notre Dame to make sure that you are ready for whatever it is you want to do after the program. Get ready for applying for positions and things like that. So that runs both mods 1 and 2. And then in between there's an interterm, and I'll mention that a little more. I think it comes up on the next slide. But then the mod 2, which is where we're at right now, if you think about the calendar, we just started mod 2, a week or 2 ago. We're doing, here's what the students are doing right now. They're doing an advanced statistical inference course. which is also taught mostly in R. They're starting to learn another programming language, Python, particularly as it's applied to data analytics, machine learning. So now they're digging into some of the algorithms and the models that they sort of got introduced to in the predictive analytics course, but now they're actually understanding how do they work, and they're doing some coding primarily in R, but maybe a little bit in Python towards the end of the mod. There's a data storytelling class because just being able to do all the math is not sufficient. You have to be able to communicate with clients both on the front end of a project to understand what their needs are, and then on the back end to explain, hey, we did all this complicated modeling stuff that I can't go into detail on and tell you what we did, but I have to at least convince you that I know what I'm talking about, and here's what you should do based on my analysis. So there's a data storytelling course that is very hands-on. So that's the fall semester. One of the things you'll note is the fall semester looks, and it is a bit busier. There's actually, I think, 18 credits in the fall and 13 credits in the spring. When we get to the spring, and that is intentional, by the way, in the spring, that's when most of y'all will be really busy with interviews and, applying for jobs, and we want to give you some time for that. So that's a deliberate decision on our part. But notice we also get to some more advanced topics in the spring. There's an unstructured data analytics course, which picks up where machine learning left off. In machine learning, we generally presume that data is this sort of spreadsheet-like, thing with rows and columns and mostly numbers. Well, that isn't what's entirely meant by data. Data also means text and audio and video and other things. So you'll learn about those in this unstructured data analytics course. Again, primarily using R, but with some Python now that you've got that on your tool belt. One of the things we changed from the first year of the program to the second was we made time series analysis or time series analytics a required course. It used to be an elective, but both due to demand from students and employers, and what we saw in the Capstone experience course, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, we really felt that it was something everyone needed to have. So we have added in time series modeling in Mod 3 as a required course. You'll notice then that the Analytics Capstone experience, which is a course actually, spans both Mods 3 and Mod 4. In other words, the entire spring semester. And that's where you, along with other members of a learning team, probably 4 or 5 students total, will be working with a real-world company or nonprofit, an organization, to help them answer questions with data that they have provided you, but maybe don't know what to do with. So it's a really good opportunity. I'll talk a little bit later about what some of the companies are that we've worked with in the past. And then you'll notice in both Mods 3 and Mod 4, there's listed an MSBA elective. We have a variety of these. I have them listed on the next slide, actually. I want to point out, you actually only have to take one elective. You do not have to take two. You may have the opportunity to take two, as long as your grades in the fall were, good. We'll let you take an extra course. We're not worried about that. So you could end up with 33 credits instead of 31, but you actually only have to take one of these. And then in Mod 4, we wrap up with a spreadsheet decision modeling course. And you might wonder, hey, why do we have this spreadsheet class at the end after I've been doing all this programming in R and Excel, or R and Python? Why are you going to give me something in Excel? Well, believe it or not, when you come out of an MSBA program and you go to a company, they're going to expect you to be the Excel expert in the company. Whether or not that's your chosen tool to work in for most of your analysis, it's not. But being the Excel expert, I promise you, has its benefits. It earns you lots of credibility points with other people when you can help them with their problem. Something that used to take them 45 minutes and now takes them 30 seconds because of something you showed them in Excel. You'll enjoy knowing more about Excel than what you did coming in. I mentioned the fact that data and analysis is, we might think it's this sort of objective thing. Well, yeah and no. we need to think about what are the implications of the decisions that we are making or the recommendations we're making to decision makers on people, especially because a lot of the data that we analyze, even though it looks like numbers in rows and columns or text, it's collected from or is about people, and we need to think about what are the effects of our analysis on other human beings, and are we biased in something we're doing, maybe not intentionally, but without realizing it. So we have a course where we will talk through a number of case studies and give you opportunities to think about things a bit differently than maybe you have before. And then, like I said before, there's another elective opportunity there, and the capstone continues until May. On the next slide, if we can go ahead, Stephanie. I should mention these two interterm experiences as they currently stand. So you come in and you take your Intro to Business Analytics course and your data management course, and you get a little bit of exposure to R. And about 3 weeks ago, where we were at, the students were like, "Hey, I'm kind of liking this R thing, but I really don't feel comfortable in it." Well, we basically give you a week-long intensive coding class. It's a 1-credit course called Data Wrangling with R, where we give you a pretty good-sized data set to work on. Whoops, what happened there? I think we lost the slide. There we go. Thank you. So we go ahead and do that. And I know I was just talking with some of the current students earlier this week, and I kind of said, "Hey, how was interterm? Did that help?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely feeling much more comfortable now." So that's a good thing. And then the spring interterm experience, it's kind of like a mini capstone, and it's something you can put on your resume. Here's a project I worked on for a real world client. This one leverages some of the unstructured data analytics stuff that you learn in Mod 3, because it's a lot of survey responses that include free text fields that many students haven't seen before, how to analyze that, and you get some hands-on experience there. And then you can see here, these are the 5 electives that we're currently offering. You have to take at least one of them. You possibly can take 2 of them. You can see it really ranges from sports analytics to marketing analytics, strategic business technology, even more with Excel, but this time with VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, which is a Microsoft-specific programming language that's meant to be used in Excel, and then social media analytics. So we have a variety of things depending what your interests are, or maybe by the time you're choosing your electives, you'll know where you're going to be working, and your employer might say, "Hey, it would be really helpful to us if you had a little more experience in marketing analytics, for example." Or if you're going to go work for a sports team, well, then sports analytics would make sense. By the way, I teach the sports analytics course, so I'm kind of excited about it. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so that's the interterm experiences and electives. Let's talk a little more about the capstone. So
before we move on, I apologize. We actually
go
have
ahead.
a question related to curriculum. Bill is asking, he's heard from other schools that more businesses find value in Python versus R. Is that something that we look into, and that we make sure we're staying at the forefront of what industries are using?
We've seen that it does vary by industry. Some industries, Python is the leading language. Others, it seems to be R. We've thought about just choosing one and getting students to be really good in one and not worrying about the other. To date, we've decided to teach both, like you see. So we introduce R and SQL first. By the way, SQL is often not mentioned, in the R and Python conversation, but I think it needs to be. It's kind of a foundational query language that I think everyone needs to know, regardless of which scripting language you choose to use. But we've tried to. I would say our first year we leaned more towards R. We're building out more Python into the program now, and in some of the more advanced courses, giving students the opportunity to use either one, depending which one they are more comfortable with or they think they want to use. So yeah, we're aware of the conversations about R versus Python out there, and we're still at the point where we think both should be taught, and at least get you to a point where when you go work, whichever one, the company where you end up is using, you'll be at least comfortable, have a foundational level that you can build on once you get there. So that's kind of the decision we've made at this point. Of course, we revisit the curriculum, at a high level every year and think about changes, and that could change at some point in the future. But as of now, that's where we're at. So the Capstone project course, like it says here, is a semester-long experience, and it's this experiential learning. And we have 3 goals for this. We kind of want you to put together everything you've learned from all your classes. Now, you won't use everything, but I think you'll use at least a little bit of something from nearly all of your courses. And then we want you to be able to go through this process that I mentioned earlier, starting with the formulation, collecting and cleaning the data, doing the actual analysis and model building, and then making recommendations to a client who probably doesn't have the same level of technical education that you will at that point. And that can be a challenge, which is why number 3 is here as well. We want to help strengthen your skills for communicating about analytics to business professionals. So these are the 3 goals of that. Now, let's go ahead and jump ahead to the next slide, because you might be wondering, well, what kinds of companies, could I be working for? And you'll see here we've got them organized in some sort of sectors or verticals, if you will. We've had projects sponsored by financial organizations, by healthcare organizations, those in manufacturing. In case you aren't aware, the South Bend Elkhart area, there's a fair amount of manufacturing here in this area. Of course, we have many students who go off into the consulting and tech world, so we maintain connections there. And then there's this other category, which is kind of a catch-all, because I wasn't sure what to call them. I mean, that one shield there you see is the U.S. Soccer Federation. GATX is a railway leasing company. The 2 round ones are 2 cities, the city of South Bend and the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico. CHC is a helicopter leasing and operating company. The Pat Tillman Foundation is a nonprofit. I mean, it's really across the board. And one of the things that I would say is that every company, every organization in 2020 is a data company, a data organization. It's just some of them haven't realized it yet. So I partially view our job as to help some of them realize it. So I'm actually not teaching right now. I taught in Mod 1. I'm not teaching right now. My job right now is to go find a bunch of capstone projects for the students to work on in the spring. I've got a few cool ones lined up for this year, but I'm still working on some others. So that's what I do, is I go talk to people who work at companies and have data that have questions our students can hopefully help them answer.
All right, thank you, Scott. So now that we know a little bit more about what to expect within the MSBA, let's talk a little bit about what you might be able to expect after the MSBA. So here's some key industries that the MSBA students are going into with employment opportunities post MSBA. And you can see there are a lot of industries listed. That's one of the great things about data, is that it is everywhere. Everybody's collecting data, they're producing data. And so every potential to have analytics roles. And that means that you have more potential to take on analytics roles. I think Scott has a saying that he says that every company is a data company, they just don't know it yet, or something similar to that. And that's true. And so you see all of these wonderful industries that our students are going into. So many great opportunities there. Just a couple of companies that our most recent graduating class took job offers with listed there as well. And you can see the variety is fantastic, and the roles that the students are taking on, that our graduates are taking on, are really broad as well. And I do encourage you, if you want to know more about our MSBA Career Outlook, we will be hosting a career development webinar webinar for the MSBA next month, November 17th, and I'll be joined by our MSBA career coach, Lindsay McIntyre. So she can dive a lot deeper into the various roles that our students are taking on, and a little bit more about just the number of students who are full-time employed now after graduating and so on. So definitely consider joining us for that. All right, so let's move on now to the application requirements. I promised a brief overview of the application process. And so I will tell you that the application is live. It's been live for a number of months now. And you're welcome to go ahead and submit your applications if you haven't already. At any time, we do have another application deadline coming up actually in a couple of months. So you have a fair amount of time to work on that application here. Some of the items that we'll be requiring with that application are resume. Your resume should just be one page. And we understand that most of you are currently undergraduate students, or maybe only have a year or two of professional full-time work experience. So we don't expect that resume to be several pages or look more like a CV. We expect that you will have some internships listed. You're welcome to include information like projects that you have worked on in some of your classes, community service that you have done as well. I always appreciate, I know Scott appreciates as well, when you list on your resume particular programming languages that you have already learned, or that you have used in the projects or work that you've done. That helps as well. It's not required for admission to this program, but those are things that you can add to fill out your resume. So just remember, one page, it doesn't have to be extensive. 2 recommendations we require as well. And if you are currently in an undergraduate program, one of those recommendations should be hopefully from either an academic advisor or a professor that you have had. So someone who can speak more to your academic abilities, your ability to work in group projects, and your ability to pick up new programming languages, or perhaps just the ability to pick up new knowledge quickly. So the other recommender could be perhaps an internship supervisor if you do have some work experience, a full-time professional supervisor of yours, someone who can speak more to your professionalism, your performance in the workplace, your ability to lead others, to work as part of a team as well. If you are an athlete, we love athletes as well, and athletes can certainly get a recommendation from a coach, someone who can talk about your teamwork, and also perhaps leadership experience if you have, if you're maybe the team captain or so on. So anybody like that could serve as a recommender for you. We do require transcripts for all of the institutions that you have attended. So if you started in one institution and transferred to another, we do require transcripts from both, or from all of those. If you simply did, maybe a one-off class here or there for, to satisfy a requirement or credits, that's not necessary to gain that transcript. But if you've done what we would consider full-time, credit coursework, so nine credits or more, then we do ask you to submit that transcript. At this point in time with the application process, you don't have to submit an official transcript. You can easily go to the student portal of your university, download an unofficial transcript, and you can include that with your application. There's no need to wait for a transcript to be sent to us directly from the institution, either by mail. If you have the option to send it digitally, you can certainly do it that way. we would accept the transcript either way. We also require a GMAT or a GRE score. Either one of those exams is fine. I recommend that you take a practice exam on both platforms and decide which platform feels most comfortable for you based on the background that you have. The GMAT focuses a bit more on the quantitative side, whereas the GRE has a bit more balance between quantitative and verbal. And so the GRE can sometimes be a little bit kinder to those applicants who maybe are coming from a social science background. At this stage, just like the transcript, we don't require the transcript or the scores, the official score report at this time. A copy, just a test taker copy, is all you need to submit to us at this time. We will take the official copy if you're admitted and choose to enroll in the program. And that definitely speeds up the review process. It can actually take, even if you are requesting a digital copy to be sent to us from GMAC or from ETS, it can take many weeks to be sent to us, and that can slow down your application review. So when you take that exam and you get that test taker copy of your score report right away or within a couple of days, just attach that to your application. I will also mention too that you can submit your application without having taken the GMAT or GRE. You can apply first and include a future test date and take that exam at a later time. But I do ask that you take that exam and submit those scores within 2 weeks of your round's decision release date. That gives us plenty of time to review your application and still get you that decision by that decision release date. If you are an international student joining us, we do require the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the PTE exam. Any one of those 3 exams will do. But you do have an option for a waiver of these exams. If you are an international student who has studied here in the US for 3 consecutive academic years, or if your undergraduate program was international but it was taught in English, then you are waived of this requirement. And there's nothing you need to do to obtain that waiver. All you need to do is to apply, make sure that we have a transcript that would either indicate that you have been studying in the US, or most often on transcripts, they will say what the medium of instruction is, and that should indicate English. And if so, we will see that. My team will see that as they begin reviewing your credentials, and we will automatically waive that on our end. So no need to reach out and inquire about a waiver. We also require an essay. You have 2 different great topics to choose from. So you just choose one. That essay is 2 pages typed, double spaced. We do not have any additional guidelines for formatting. I'm sure that you all have a lot of formatting rules and guidelines with the classes that you're taking, but we don't want the essay to be about the formatting. We want it to be about you. So focus more in that essay about yourself and make it introspective. Those prompts that we give you are meant to be introspective so that we can learn more about who you are as an individual. So remember that as you're choosing that topic and thinking about what you're writing. We're reading that essay to get to know you. We also require a slide presentation. Now, this slide presentation is not something that you will present to us. And in fact, it's not even uploaded as a PowerPoint. It's uploaded as a PDF file. And so this slide presentation is 4 slides. So not a maximum of 4 or not starting at 4, but just 4 slides. And within those 4 slides, I think this is my favorite part of the application to review, but it's absolutely the most troublesome piece of the application for our applicants. And so I always like to dive into this piece because this piece of the application is meant for you to really be able to showcase your personality and your passions and what you are all about as a person. We know that there is so much more to you than a transcript, than a GMAT score, than a resume. You are a person. And we're not just attempting to fill seats in a class for a program, but we know that through this process, we are gaining new members to our Notre Dame community, our family here. And so we love to see that personality shine through in your application. And the slide presentation is where you do that. So in your slide presentation, include photos. Tell us what you're passionate about. What are your top likes or dislikes? Who are the people in your life who are most important to you? What is most important to you? What are the activities that you love to fill your time doing? Think about those things. The slides should not be a reiteration of your resume or your application. This should be new information that is not included anywhere else in your application. This is valuable real estate for you in your application. So don't repeat the information we've already read through. Tell us more, go deeper, show us who you are. I love the slides that I read, and I can definitely tell that this person has a great sense of humor. They've allowed that piece of themselves to come through those slides. I got a question a couple days ago. Can I include pictures of my dog? My dog is my most precious person or thing in my life. And I said, yes, send me pictures of your dog in your slides. That's okay too. We're dog people. Scott's got 2 dogs. He would love to see dog pictures too. So feel free to really depart from the ultra professional aspect of the rest of your business school application and just have fun with this piece, okay? Last piece of the puzzle here, it's the interview. Now, I will say that many of our applicants do get selected for an interview, but not all of them do, okay? So don't worry if you haven't received an interview invitation from us. That doesn't mean what your decision, that your decision is negative. It just simply means that we can't interview everybody, but some folks we do want to dive a little bit deeper. Maybe we have some more questions to ask of them. We need to get a better sense of their background. So don't assume if you haven't gotten an interview invitation that you aren't going to be admitted. Assume that you've given us great information, okay? But if you do get an interview invitation, know that that interview this year is going to be via Zoom. We would love to host you on campus and show you around this beautiful place. But in order to keep our students safe, we are limiting visitors on campus this year. So we will be only offering Zoom interviews. Those interviews typically last 45 minutes to an hour. They might be with me, they might be with one of my great colleagues, but either way, that interview is meant to be a conversation. We're hoping to learn more about you as an individual. We're hoping to learn more about your goals, some of your background experiences. It is meant to be a professional experience for you, so dress the part. But do come to this interview knowing that our goal is to learn more about you as a person, okay? So hopefully it won't be too scary. All right, one last piece that I kind of skipped over for the last is the prerequisites. I've already talked about those prerequisites. Now, if you have met the prerequisites through your undergraduate program, you don't need to do anything else with your application, okay? All you need to do is just submit that transcript. I will find the prerequisites on your transcript. I will know that you have satisfied those. If you have not met any or all of those prerequisites, but you still want to apply to this program, that's great. You still have the opportunity to meet those prerequisites and apply to the program, and you don't have to have all the prerequisites in order to apply to the program. So you do have the option to complete prerequisites after you've applied, including after you've been admitted, but we do hope that you'll complete them sooner rather than later. You will find a page in your application that talks about a prerequisite completion plan. And what we have you submit with that plan is how you plan to complete those prerequisites before the program starts, what the platform is in which you will take those classes, and what your time frame is for completing those classes. Okay. So many of our applicants who have not yet completed all of their prerequisites, if they're still in an undergraduate program and they have some room in their schedule, they might be able to add a class at this point in time to satisfy a prerequisite. But many of our applicants will choose to take a course, a certificate course on an online platform. And they've, students have used Coursera, they've used LinkedIn Learning, they've used edX and similar platforms. Any of those would suffice as long as the class is offered through an accredited institution. Okay. And you're more than welcome to do it that way. We are not, we don't judge based on whether it was a certificate class or an actual 4-credit class. Once you complete those classes, you'll send me the certificate of completion and I will add that to your application. Okay. So more details in your application about how to complete that prerequisite completion plan. Okay.
Stephanie, if I can jump in, I saw a question in the chat, and just a reminder to everyone, please put the questions in the Q&A, not the chat, but I did happen to see the one in the chat, and it asked how many semesters worth of statistics would fulfill the prerequisite. We're just looking for one, okay? One is fine, but do make sure to put your questions in the Q&A, please, not the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Now, before I move on, I do see several questions here that are related to the application requirements. So we have one person asking if they'll be penalized for having 2 professor recommendations. Absolutely not. No, you can certainly have 2 academic recommenders, but I would think about the professors who you are asking to recommend you. Find faculty who can speak to different qualities, that you possess, or different aspects of your character. So maybe one faculty member taught a class that you really excelled in and you really picked up the subject matter very quickly. And maybe in another, your other recommender is a professor who taught a class that you really struggled in, but that you worked really hard, and you came and during office hours and asked a lot of questions and advocated for yourself. Those are all great qualities. So just think about how those faculty members can speak to different sides of who you are. So we have another question. Can I submit an official transcript, or can I do a copy? A copy is fine at this stage. If you are admitted to the program and choose to enroll, then we will ask you to submit that official transcript to us. All right. So someone asking about, they've completed an MS program in the US. Do we still need a GRE score? Yes. Unfortunately, GREs or GMATs are not waived for prior experience or educational background. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if there's any others. I think we can go ahead and move on, and we'll catch those in later slides. All right, so next slide, the application fee waiver. I'm sure all of you are waiting for this. So on your application, you will see on the last page, it's the last section, I believe, of that page, a section for a fee waiver. And you can go ahead and type in that section the code that I've included here on the slide, Irish Web. All caps, all one word. That will waive your $50 application fee. But I will also have that code on the very last slide that we will keep up while we're doing our Q&A section. So don't worry about scrambling to write that down right now. You will see that come up again in a few minutes. So last slide that I have for all of you are our admission deadlines. So now you know what you need to submit. When should you submit all of those items? So our next round coming up is January 12th. That's round 2. And that that round obviously a few months away, so you have plenty of time to put together all of those application credentials and work on your essay and your slides. Many of you will have an extended Christmas break from school that you can use to put together your applications. And please know that you might be on break, but I won't be. So if you have any questions during that time, you can always reach out to me, and I'm always happy to answer those questions and walk you through some of the pieces of the application if you're having concerns or doubts or just not quite sure of some of the finer details. If you apply by January 12th, you will hear back no later than March 26th. Now, my bit of advice here on the application rounds. You don't have to wait until the very last moment to click submit, okay? You don't have to apply on January 12th. You can apply at any time now up to January 12th, and you're still going to meet that round 2 deadline. Another piece of advice that I will give to you is plan accordingly. If you are applying to multiple programs from multiple schools, think about the other application deadlines that you have and the notification dates that you have. If you have to commit to another program by a certain date, please don't expect that our decisions will be rolling. Most often, especially in rounds 2 and 3, we get the bulk of our applications during that time, and it's very difficult to issue decisions on a rolling basis. So you can really only expect decisions to come out in that third week of March. So if you need to know sooner than that, it might be unlikely that you will know. Sometimes we are able to make make a special arrangement for a decision, but I cannot guarantee that. Okay, so plan accordingly if you're applying to multiple rounds. All right. All right, so I think that is it. So now it's time to go into the Q&A portion. So I know, Scott, you've been monitoring some of those questions, and I have too. I see there's one up at the top. Scott, what's the difference between business analytics and data science?
Yeah, let me tackle that one. They're not perfect synonyms for one another. However, there is significant overlap. Many of the skills and tools that you learn in a data science program are the same ones you learn in a business analytics program. And realize it varies from one school to the next what each program looks like. I can tell you for the data science and the business analytics programs here at Notre Dame what the difference is. So the data science program here is in the College of Science, whereas the business analytics program is obviously in Mendoza College of Business. There's a whole lot of overlap. In fact, there's some faculty who teach very similar courses in both programs. I'm one of them, actually. I teach the ethics in business analytics course and the ethics in data science course, and I got to tell you, they're really pretty similar. The data science, though, does have more of a deeper technical expectation in terms of kind of a math and statistics background than what the business analytics one does. There is coursework and expectation of calculus and of matrix algebra to understand a little more deeply the way that some of the algorithms work. Whereas in the business analytics program, more of the focus is on learning what they do and how to apply them to problems, not the nuts and bolts of how they work. So that's the biggest thing I would say. And, since the programs are of, similar lengths, you might say, well, then what does one have? Other than that, what does the other one have? I would say we get a little more applied examples, applied projects, to apply it to make business decisions, not just to solve data problems. So how do you apply it in a business context? So that would be the best way I could, I think, answer that. And realize that, but still there's, I don't know, 70, 80% sort of commonality between most data science and most business analytics problems, at least based on what I've seen. I see another question here that I can go ahead and do real quick. It asks what the duration of the capstone project is. It's the entire spring semester. So, that starts typically in mid-January and goes through the end of April. So about 3.5 months from start to finish.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. We have another question about scholarships for this program. We do have merit-based scholarships. We call them fellowships here at Mendoza, but they're essentially scholarships, so don't let that name fool you. Merit-based fellowships are considered during the time of admission. So when we review you for admission to the program, we will also consider you for those fellowships. They can range anywhere from around $10,000 to $20,000. The average is around $13,000 to $14,000. And I will say that 94% of our students in the current class received fellowships. We consider all sorts of information from your application profile, your GMAT score or GRE score, GPA. We consider your internship experience or work experience, recommendations from your recommenders. And if you have conducted an interview with us, the information you shared in that interview as well. So I will say, in terms of eligibility, if you are qualifying to be admitted into this program, there is a good chance that you are going to qualify for a fellowship. Okay, so like I said, the majority of our admitted students this past year did receive fellowships from us. All right, another good question. Do we have an admissions counselor who can work with us on the essay or PowerPoint? That's me. So if you do have questions about your essay or the slide presentation, feel free to email me and I will be happy to help. You can email, you can also call. I've been sending email messages to all of you about this webinar, and that does have my email address and my office phone number in it as well. So you can easily find my contact info there. All right, another question. Can we find out our decision before the deadline, or they are sent actually on that date listed? So the decision release date is when you will hear from us about your decision. It is very rare that we are able to release decisions earlier than those deadlines. Just given the application load that our team is reviewing, and because we do spend a lot of time with your applications as well. We read every credential that you submit to us and every word that you share with us. And so it does take some time. And so because of that, we do typically have to wait until that release date to send those decisions out.
I can take a couple of questions here. Someone has noticed that we have a full-time MSBA and a part-time MSBA. So the first MSBA program that Notre Dame started is in Chicago. It's for working professionals. Now, you might say it's part-time, although it's actually pretty close to full-time too. It just meets in a different format. It meets in an executive style format every other Friday and Saturday in Chicago. So yes, that is another program that we offer. It's not the one I run. It's not the one Stephanie does admissions for. We have colleagues who manage that program. But if someone is interested in that program and has the right background for that, or we feel, if you apply to our program and we feel you'd be a better fit for that program, we'll be sure to point that out to you and to our colleagues. But that program is designed for people who are currently working. So it is a bit different. There's not really an easy way to switch between the two. I will tell you though, they're very similar. I mean, 85 or so % of the coursework and the instructors are the same. We try to keep them similar in terms of what is covered, but the delivery method is very different. There was another question about whether it would be this program is a full-time program or hybrid or online. Our goal is for it to be full-time on campus. With COVID this year, we've had to be a little bit flexible with that. Last year towards the end of the spring semester, we went to online, in mid-March when the whole university and most other schools did as well. And we finished out the year that way. This year, we are teaching in what I'll call a dual delivery mode. In other words, the goal is that the students and the faculty members are in class, but if someone can't be there because either they are ill or they're in quarantine or isolation because they've been exposed to someone who is ill, they can attend via Zoom, for that 10-day or 14-day period. So we're delivering both in person and online. But our goal is to get back, hopefully as vaccines are developed and the pandemic becomes less of a global issue, we really want to get back to being in person, fully in person on campus for this program, to be clear. One other question I see is, how is our program different from other MSBA programs at other schools? Content-wise, it's very similar. What's come to be known as an MSBA is kind of sort of what I described you, but we try to put our Notre Dame spin on it. We tend to have small sections. We want very personal interactions between the students and the faculty. Stephanie mentioned 80 students, but you'll never be in a class with 80 students. The most you would see is 40. We would have 2 sections of 40 students at most. Now you'll get to know people in the other section as well through social events and mingling or mixing within electives and some courses and things like that. But it's the other thing that I would say that not every course has, or not every program of study has, is the focus on ethics that we do. It may just be a lesson on ethics rather than a course, and additionally integrated ethics cases built into some of the other coursework as well. It's kind of in our DNA here and something we've been doing for a long time. So it's a big deal. So that's how I would say we're maybe a little different.
Thank you, Scott. So we have another question. Can I apply to more than one program at Notre Dame? For example, the dual degree MBA, MSBA. It is possible to apply to more than one program here at Mendoza at the same time. However, I will say that candidates who are a good fit for the MSBA are not always the right fit for the dual degree, and vice versa. So with this MSBA program, our typical candidate is someone who has that 0 to 2 years of work experience, who is maybe, simply done some internships during undergrad. However, our MBA programs, all of our MBA programs, including that dual degree, are designed for candidates who have more work experience. The average is between 3 and 5 years. And so there might be some candidates who are right on that bubble, and they could really go either way to the MBA, the dual degree, or the MSBA. But more often than not, they're in one group or the other. So I would recommend, if you're not 100% sure which program is the right fit for you, reach out to me. I'm happy to take a look at your resume. We can talk more about your background and your experiences, and we can kind of work out together which program would be the best fit for you to apply to. All right, when's the admission deposit due if you've been admitted? So your deposit is due 30 days from the decision release date for your round, okay? So just keep that in mind. Again, if you are kind of juggling multiple applications with different schools, that you will have to commit at that time. Now, if there are some concerns on your part about financing this education and you're still working out the financing piece, please let me know. and I'm happy to offer you an extension. But typically it is that 30-day mark that we hope for that confirmation, because we do have multiple rounds that are kind of going simultaneously. And so in order to really be able to process the next round that comes after you, we need to know if we should save a seat for you or not. And I would hate for you to really want to fill one of those seats, but then not have any left if you've waited past that 30 days. Okay, and our decisions sent via mail or email, we do email the decisions out first, okay? So you will get that exciting big envelope in the mail at some point in time though, but you are first notified of your decision via email from us. And then it is followed, if you are in the US, you will get your official decision packet in the mail in a fancy gold envelope a few weeks after you've received your email notification. If you are outside the US and you are an international candidate, you will get that fancy gold envelope from us, but it will come with your immigration paperwork. Okay, so when we mail you your I-20, you will also get that admission packet from us, but we can provide digital copies for anybody who asks of your signed admission letter on letterhead though. Okay.
So let me try to answer this question, which asks, what are the types of professional and career development opportunities that are available from within the MSBA program? Well, I mean, we did mention the Bridge to Success class, which happens in the fall semester with our career counselor from the Office of Career Development, or the Career Development Center. And she works with our employee relations person in the Career Development Center and you know, some of their other colleagues in helping to do some other things like, you know, treks to go visit go visit companies in Chicago, for example, that are looking for people doing analytics. That is often done in conjunction with the Business Analytics Club. There are other opportunities, analytics case studies or case competitions that students get to participate in. Sometimes they're virtual, sometimes they involve travel. Datathons, hackathons. We're actually sponsoring one here coming up in a few months here on campus for not just the MSBA students, but our undergrad business analytics students and maybe some data science students and some others. So there are opportunities to do things and get other experiences outside of class. There's a consulting club that the MBA program runs that welcomes people from the MSBA and the other specialized master's programs too. So there's generally lots of opportunities. If there's something you're looking for that you don't see, well, ask the question or, you know, offer to help organize it, and chances are we'll be receptive. I see another question asking if there are thesis and research opportunities in analytics, you know, other than the Capstone project. Well, I mentioned the one sort of mini capstone that is in the spring interterm. That's one that everyone gets. While there's no thesis requirement or option for the degree, there are opportunities to be a research assistant for a Mendoza faculty member. We have several MSBA students who are working as RAs or research assistants or maybe TAs, teaching assistants for faculty members for which they are paid and they get some experience. We also have students who, you know, I mentioned I teach the sports analytics elective. I'm the advisor for the sports analytics club here on campus. I have students, both undergraduate and graduate, doing work for Notre Dame athletics teams, doing analytic work that the coaches and training staffs are interested in. You know, now that's not paid work, it's volunteer club type work, but there are other opportunities out there.
Thank you, Scott. So we have another question. that on the Notre Dame website, it says that almost 100% of students in the graduate school receive full tuition scholarships. Does this pertain to the MSBA? So the MSBA is housed under Mendoza College of Business, which is separate from the graduate school. So the graduate school offers other master's degrees aside from business. So Mendoza controls the graduate business program. So that is separate. So that is an excellent number for them to be able to share, but unfortunately it does not apply to the MSBA or other graduate business programs here at Mendoza. And so then we have a final question here. Are there students who defer and will enter the program next year? And will that influence your enrollment? So we do have a number of students who have deferred because of COVID-19 travel and immigration complications. However, just given our past experience with deferred candidates, we do not anticipate that all of our deferred students will ultimately enter the program in this next fall. Yes, some deferred students who will be entering the program, they will fill seats. And so that will take away some of those seats from the applicants who will be admitted, or who could potentially be admitted this cycle. However, that is something that Scott and I pay very close attention to as we review those applicants as well. So we are always very mindful of the seats that we could have filled by the time we start admitting a next round of applicants. So just know that we do have some defers, but we don't anticipate that they will all join us. So I think that is our last question. Unless anybody has any final questions, I'll give you maybe a minute or so. But in that time, I do want to say thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for submitting these great and very thoughtful questions. We're happy that you've joined us and hope that you're walking away with a lot more great information about the MSBA. I hope you will take the next couple of months to start working on those applications and submitting those applications. And please always remember that if you have questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me. I'm also happy to connect you to Scott if you have more specific questions about the curriculum and the courses that we offer in this program. It does not look like we have any additional questions coming through. So with that, Scott and I bid you good night or good morning. And thank you again for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you in some of our future webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.